Oh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ولا عاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله. أما بعد. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we thank the Almighty Allah for giving us an opportunity to be here. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. We also bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. Whosoever the Almighty Allah guides is really guided, and anybody who goes astray has nobody to blame but themselves. Today is a Sunday. It corresponds with the 13th day of Rabiul Awwal, 1444 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which also corresponds with the 9th day of October 2022. This is our second episode in the studies of the Seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Last week we looked at the first episode where we discussed who the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is and the rights that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has over us. Inshallah, today we are going to look at why do we need to study the Seerah? Why is the Seerah important? Why do you need to study the life of someone who had lived 1,000 years ago? What is so important about his life that we need to study? But before we go into today's class, I have a comment concerning where we stopped yesterday from yesterday's class. Yesterday we were speaking about what is the Sharia, and then we spoke about the characteristics of the Sharia. And part of the characteristics of the Sharia is that it brings ease to people in terms of the fact that the Sharia has some flexibilities within it, that you are allowed some windows of opportunity within the Sharia. And we brought a legal maxim where the scholars say ad-darurat tubihul mahdhurat, that conditions and situations make some prohibitions lawful. And our time was fast spent, so we're not able to espouse and explain better for the understanding of the Jama'ah. So a lot of people left with some question marks on their faces, and that's how a class sometimes is. It's not all the time that people really get to understand what is being taught or what is being said. I'll try to explain this using examples. The first example I'm going to give is, may the Almighty Allah forbid, you end up in the desert somewhere and there's no food, and the only food you come across is pork. Within the life and death situation, the Sharia allows you to eat some of the pork for sustenance. Is this example clear? The Sharia allows you, within the situation that you find yourself, a life and death situation, to eat that pork. But the pork still remains haram. The fact that you are in a life and death situation, so the Sharia allows you to eat it, it doesn't turn the pork into halal. No. Even within that instance, it is still what? It is still haram. But just that you find yourself in a life and death situation, the preservation of your life then and there is more important for the Sharia than the haramness of what? Of the pork. In Sharia, we weigh these things, and it's very, very important. I hope this example is clear. The second example is, maybe may the Almighty Allah forbid again, that your mother is sick, and the doctor said we need about $50,000 before they can do anything to help her. And then we gather all our strength, and all we could raise was $20,000. And the doctor say, if we don't get that money within 2 weeks and then she's operated upon, we're going to lose her. the Sharia here allows you to go in for a riba-based loan to save your mother's life. The Sharia allows that. That does not mean that the riba is halal. No. It doesn't mean that the fact that you are in that situation, so the thing now turns into halal. No, it's still haram. But then it's just a window that the Sharia has given you, the Almighty Allah has given you, because the preservance of life in the Sharia is very, very, very important. It's not rigid. The example or the dalil we have for this is there's a verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah. It's one of the longest verses in the Quran. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Quran chapter 5, verse 3, where the Almighty Allah says, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ وَالدَّمُ وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةُ وَالْمَوْقُوذَةُ وَالْمُتَرَدِّيَةُ وَالنَّطِيحَةُ وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبُعُ إِلَّا مَا ذَكَّيْتُمْ وَمَا ذُبِحَ عَلَى النُّصُبِ وَأَن تَسْتَقْسِمُوا بِالْأَزْلَامِ ذَلِكُمْ فِسْقٌ. The verse is speaking about the things that the Almighty Allah has made haram for us. He said pork, blood, carrion, animals that are dead before you even slaughter them. In the end, the Almighty Allah says, if anybody is necessitated or pushed into a corner through hunger, not because he wants to commit sin, and then he ends up eating those prohibited animals, فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. There is no sin and there is no punishment on the person. So this is just a reminder of what we discussed yesterday. So there are other situations and conditions whereby some things are prohibited in the Sharia, but because of necessities and conditions and situations, the Almighty Allah has given us this window that within that time frame of the necessity and the condition, the Almighty Allah has given you that flexibility to go in for that which is not permissible. But then within that time frame, if you solve that problem, then that thing returns back to its original position for you. And then it is not a general rule that everybody finds himself in that. No, it is not a general rule. It is tailor measured for specific people. It depends on you and the condition that you are in. That's just by the way. Today's lesson is why do we need the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I think my brother here thinks we are in class, so he's raising his hands to answer the question. But it's good. I like that. Barakallahu feek. The first reason that we need the seerah is that we Muslims have a unique identity. Islam is unique. And for us to really understand this uniqueness and then implement this uniqueness in our lives, we need to go back to the first generation of Islam to study their lives. How did they live? It's very important. The Muslims in Medina, or even before that in Mecca, they lived with kuffar. In Medina, they lived with Jews. And then the Christians of Najran were somewhere around that corner too. But the Muslims maintained an identity which was very unique. That when you meet a Muslim in Medina, you'll be able to differentiate between him and a Jew in Medina. That is how they lived. They were not influenced by the activities or by the lifestyles of the non-Muslims that are around them. So in the present world that we're living in now as Muslims, there is the need for us to go back into the seerah, to study the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that we get that unique identity that makes us a different group of people. Because there is a way we dress, there's a way we eat, there's a way we carry ourselves around, there's a way we marry, there's a way we do everything. So it's important that we go into the seerah to see how did the seerah teach us to do business? How did the seerah teach us to relate with other people? How did the seerah teach us to live with ourselves, our spouses, our children, our environment? It's very, very important, because if we don't go into the seerah to look at these things, then we lose our identity. I remember very well on the member on Friday, I spoke about the identity of our young ones. And the identity is, how do the young ones see themselves within the environment that we find ourselves in? Who do they copy? Who do they relate with? The hairstyle that they have, why do they have that kind of hairstyle? The kind of dress that they wear, why do they wear those kind of dresses? The kind of talk that they talk, why do they talk that way? The way they walk, why do they walk that way? It's because we've been infiltrated and then we have been copying things that do not come from our religion. And it's important that as Muslims, we look into the Seerah deeply in every way. The Prophet Muhammad tells the Sahaba that clear off your mustache and grow your beard. Why? So that you'll be able to differentiate yourself from the Jews in Medina, because the Jews always grow their mustaches and their beards. So it's always like that. Even in dressing, the Prophet Muhammad is teaching us to be unique people. So in our cultures, in our ideologies, in our identities, is very, very, very important. So that's one of the importance of the Seerah. In our studies of the Seerah, you see how the Prophet Muhammad related with his enemies. You see how he related with people who are close to him. You see how he did business. You see how he related with slaves. You see how he related with the lords of the communities. You see how he related with enemies. How he even related with someone who even came with the intention to kill him. All this is the kind of identity that a Muslim needs, and especially the up and coming young ones like myself. We need to study the Seerah so that we'll be able to what? To understand and have this unique identity. And part of the unique identity that Muslims have, or the Seerah teaches us, is that the moment any Muslim goes anywhere, the moment he says Assalamu alaikum, that's it. He's welcomed. Irrespective of whatever country he goes to. Even if he doesn't understand the local language there, by the look of the Muslims there, he knows these are Muslims. By their appearance, he knows. By the kind of voice that they use, he knows. If he enters the masjid, even if the announcements are given and then the lessons are being taught in a language that he doesn't understand, when it is time for salah, when the imam says Allah Akbar, he knows it is Allah Akbar. When the imam says Waladhalin, he knows what to say after the imam. And this is something that we need to look at deeply. So it's important as families and as individuals, we look for books in Seerah. And one of the books that I recommend for families to read is Ar-Rahiq al-Makhtum, The Sealed Nectar. It's one of the beautiful books that has been written in Seerah, and it has been translated into the English language by Safiuddin Mubarakpuri. You can get that book, I think, in the bookstores. You can get that and read the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second, reason why we need the Seerah is that we live in times where revival movements for Islam, everybody wants to, raise the flag of Islam high. But then, how do we do it? Having the intention alone is not enough. You need to have the right methodology. It's very important. Because without the right methodology, instead of doing good, you rather be harming people. So it's important we look into the Seerah and see, how did the Prophet Muhammad start in Mecca? How did he start? With the kuffar. He started as one person. The community started growing. There was antagonism against them. There was persecution. There was a persecution in Mecca. How did they live? And then when they left Mecca and they went to Medina and then they became a majority, how did they live? So those of us here, especially in the Western countries, where we are Muslim minorities, how do we live? How do we carry ourselves? How do we send the message of Islam? How do we revive the message? How do we run our MASJID in such a way that our kids or the community members will always have solace in the masjid, because the masjid gives them a place where they can come and then meditate and then think and then have some conversation with the people in the masjid that will enrich them in Iman and enrich them in their day-to-day activities. So those of us in da'wah, it's very, very important we study the methodology of the Prophet Muhammad in da'wah. How did he order people to do things? How did he stop people from doing things? Sometimes he just only look at you and then you understand the message. There's a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad where a young man came into the masjid and he was unkempt. His hair was some style, and he was dirty. And the Prophet Muhammad spoke to him in sign language. And the young man understood. And he went out. After some hours, he came back. He was washed, hair shaved, clean and nice. And the Prophet Muhammad this time, he didn't use sign language, but he spoke. He said, "Alaysa hadha afdal min an ya'tiya ahadukum tha'ira ra'si ka'annahu shaytan?" Isn't this better for you to come in as all dressed and nice, better than to have your hair in a way as if you look like a Satan? So a methodology of how to relate with people, especially if you're in the field of da'wah. That is why imams, shura, masjid leaders, whoever has a role to play in any masjid, not only in this masjid, any masjid where you have a role to play, a leadership role to play, or to help the masjid in any capacity, all of us need to learn the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, because we deal with people on different levels. Someone, you speak one word to him, he understands. Someone, you have to give him a sentence. Another person, you have to give him a whole paragraph. Someone needs a book before they understand. So you need to understand the levels of people, and you only get that in the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He will sit with the young people and speak to them. There's a hadith of Ibn Abbas in Bukhari and Muslim where he said, one day, kuntu radifan nabiyyi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ala himar. I was sitting with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the same donkey. The Prophet was in front and he was behind. On the same donkey. The Prophet would pick young men on the same donkey. And then he told him, Ya gulam, inni u'allimuka kalimatin ihfadhillaha yahfadhaka. Oh boy, listen, I'm going to teach you some words. Ihfadhillaha. Be mindful of the Almighty Allah. Be mindful of the laws of the Almighty Allah. Yahfadhaka. The Almighty Allah will protect you. The import of the hadith is how the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam related with what? With young people. How did he relate with women? It's all very important for us to understand these things as mosque leaders and even as Muslims in general, and as people who are in da'wah and people who are calling for the revival of Islam. How did he deal with people who came in to kill him? How did he deal with people who wronged him? How did he deal with people who insulted him and then defaced him and defamed him? It's all part of the seerah, and it's important for a Muslim to study. There is the hadith of Umama to Ibn Uthal. Thumama to Ibn Usal. Sayyidi Yamama. He was one bounty hunter. His job was to capture Muslims and kill them, or sell them into slavery. So one day the Sahaba went, on a security expedition, and they caught him. They grabbed him and then they brought him to Medina. And then they tied him in the masjid. And then they went and told the Prophet Muhammad that we have captured Thumama. Okay, no problem. So the Prophet came and then he saw Thumama in the masjid tied. And then he told him, why are you tying him? Release him. And they were like, Ya Rasulullah, this is Thumama. He said, yes, even if it's Thumama, so what? Untie him. Have you given him food? They said, Ya Rasulullah, this is Thumama and you are saying we should give him food. He said, give him food. They gave him food. After Thumama has eaten, the Prophet said, Ma wara'aka ya Thumama. Thumama, what brings you here? He said, Ya Muhammad. Just like that, Ya Muhammad. In taqtul dha dami. Muhammad, you listen. If you're going to kill me, kill me. And know very well that if you kill me, my people will come and revenge. But then if you free me, I'll thank you for freeing me. But as for accepting Islam, forget about it. It's not on the table for discussion. I'm not going to accept Islam. They did that for 3 days consecutively. 3 days. On the third day, the Prophet Muhammad repeated to him the same question. He repeated back the same answer. And the Prophet Muhammad told the Sahaba, Atliqu Thumama. Free him, let him go. They were like, Ya Rasulullah. He said, let him go. As he was leaving, he said, they've taken my horse and they've taken my sword and my armor. I need it back. The Prophet said, give it to him. It was given to him and then he left. After some few hours, Thumama came back into the masjid and then he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّكَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. And the Sahaba are like, man, you could have said that thing easily here. Why did you give us a tough time? He said, if I had accepted Islam when I was in captivity, people would say I have accepted Islam because I was afraid for my life. And they wouldn't believe that I was really I've become a Muslim. But living with you for 3 days, I saw how Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was living with you guys. How he live with the elderly, how he live with the young ones, how he live with the poor, how he live with the rich ones, how he went out about his things, how he live with his wives, and understood that yes, this is a true message. And I listened to the Quran because he was imprisoned in a masjid, so he could hear the Quran as it was being recited. So when I left, I went and I came back out of my own volition to accept Islam. So some of these examples are there, plenty of them in the Seerah. So those of us who are leading a revival, or we have organizations that are Islamic in nature, that we want to propagate Islam and understand the context and in the societies and in the situations we find ourselves in, is very, very important. We look deep into the Seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that we'll be able to pick some of these gems and then we'll put it in our lives. The third point is at-tarbiyah, nurturing and education. And this is just a summary. If you want to summarize the message of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one word, you say it is tarbiyah, it is education, it is nurturing. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, let me give an analogy here. They always say that the best teacher produces the best students, right? That's normal. The best teacher always produces the best students. Imagine the teacher here is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How do you think his students will fare? What kind of student he's going to produce? The University of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam produced students that up to date no university in the world has been able to produce. None. In every sphere of life, the University of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was multifaceted with multiple disciplines. If you come to warfare, there is Khalid ibn al-Walid there. If you come to trustworthiness, there is Abu Ubaidah Amir ibn al-Jarrah there. If you come to halal and haram, there is Mu'adh ibn Jabal there. If you come to diplomacy, there is Mus'ab ibn Umair there. If you come to patience and understanding, there is Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. If it comes to oratory and fluency in speaking, there is Ali ibn Abi Talib there. If it comes to modesty and shyness, there is Uthman ibn Affan there. If it comes to bravery and strength and power, there is Umar ibn Khattab there. No teacher has produced students like this before. So as teachers and as parents, we need to look into the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and see how the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam nurtured the community. He gave each and every person a task assigned to them according to their capabilities and their abilities. He looked into the community and realized that this guy has a strength in this field. This guy has a strength in this field. This guy is well versed in this field. This guy is well versed in this field. Then let's assign each and every person a role that matches with their abilities and their capabilities. And then he told Abu Darda, to Abu Dhar, it's between Abu Darda and Abu Dhar. The head is boiling now, so sometimes all the information they clash. He told him, he came to him and he said, Ya Rasulullah, so give me an appointment. You've been giving people appointments. I also need appointment. He told him, Innaka la da'if. You are weak. Wa innaha la nadamatun wa khasratun yawm al-qiyamah. You see this leadership, if you don't do it very well, it's going to be a source of grief and regret for you on the day of judgment. So I'm not going to give you any leadership position. He understood him. So, tarbiyah, nurturing and educating the community at home is very, very important. And even in our homes, wallahi, and as fathers that are sitting in front of me, The honors of nurturing the next generation of Muslims is incumbent upon us, because we'll be held accountable and responsible for the mothers and then the children. We'll be held accountable. Understand that. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara wa quduha an-nas wal hijara 'alayha malaikatun ghiladun shidad la ya'suna Allah ma amarahum wa yaf'aluna ma yu'marun. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have believed, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Protect yourselves and your families from falling into the hellfire. That is why the leadership of the home was given to you by Islam. Because you are the man of the house, that is why you're given the leadership. Not because you wear pants and then you wear a kufi. It's because it's a responsibility. Understand that. It's not being a tiger or a lion in the house. When you enter the home, assalamu alaikum, everybody is running away. The ones in the living room are running down into the basement. The one in the basement are entering under the bed and sleeping because the lion is home. No. That's not why you were made the leader of the home. You are made the leader of the home so that you will be in front and then they will be behind you, and then you drag them to Jannah. It's important. You don't give excuses. Maybe it is in this dunya that you give us excuses. Why is your son not going to madrasa? I have 3-shift job, and Saturday and Sunday is the day that I get to sleep. So nobody brings them to the school. If I sleep after Fajr, I don't wake up after Zuhur. You give us excuses, no problem. We can't force you. You can't come to your home and then pull your kids and bring them to madrasa. But on the day of judgment, the Almighty Allah will ask you. You'll be questioned. كُلُّكُمْ رَاعِي وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. All of us are shepherds, and the Almighty Allah will question all of us concerning the flock that He gave us. So your wife and your kids are the flock that the Almighty Allah gave you to take care of. If you do a good job, you get a plus credit in your account with the Almighty Allah. If you don't do a good job, you have a question to answer in front of the Almighty Allah. So tarbiyah is very, very important. And I always say, no community can be better than the families within the community. The families are the ones that come together to form the community. So if you want to have a stable and then a beautiful community, you must first of all check the family system first. It's important. Because, for example, if you bring your kids to the Tahfiz school and the kids are giving us attitude, what can we do about it? We can't. You spoiled them in the house. You didn't put them on the right path. So because they don't respect authority in the house, they won't respect authority here. Excuse me, I'm a little bit blunt today, but that's the reality. If you don't put your kids, you don't give them the necessary tarbiyah in the house, they come and spend only 2.5 hours or 3 hours here. They spend the rest of the 21 hours with you. Can we straighten them up in 3 hours when you are spoiling them in 21 hours? We can't. So with all due respect, it is a job for all of us, for you, the parents, and for the teachers in the madrasa, for us to work together and then produce the next generation of quality Muslims that the community needs. But if Saturday and Sunday is a time for you to just dump the kids at madrasa, and then you have time, you play football with the guys, and then the sister has to go to the hair salon parlor and spend hours there chit-chatting, and then after Zuhur, you come and pick them, you don't even check their homeworks, you don't even know the surah that they are at, you don't even know the names of their teachers, you don't have any relationship with the teachers. The only thing you know is you come and pay the fees every semester, and then you're okay, you're gone. No. You'll be questioning on the day of judgment. All of us. If we, the teachers, also check our responsibility of giving the adab to the kids, we'll also be questioning on the day of Qiyamah. So it is a community-based, enterprise, nurturing the kids. I remember when we were kids back home in Africa, if you do something wrong in the streets, it is someone who will start disciplining you there first. The person doesn't even know you. He doesn't know your parents. You receive your discipline there in the streets. And woe betide you if you go home and then go and cry. This so has disciplined me. You're going to get triple what you received outside. But the community here is not like that. It's not like that. So we need to find new strategies in how to give the kids tarbiyah. Because sometimes you mention the kids, you call the kids, come here. Why are you calling me? What is your name? Why are you asking me my name? Don't use your phone. Why shouldn't I use my phone in class? So how do me here, what am I going to do? I can't do anything. So it's important that we have a joint enterprise in the tarbiyah of the kids. It's important. And then the tarbiyah of the kids, you don't wait for them to grow old before you start doing that. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Murru awladakum lis-salati sab'in, wadribuhum 'alayha li'ashrin, wa farriqu baynahum fil madaji." That order your children to pray salah at the age of 7. This hadith is a worst case scenario. The scholars of psychology say that when a child is born, the brain is clear, clean. They call it tabla rasa. There's nothing in there. For the first 5 years, the child is memorizing and copying everything that it sees. It's just memorizing. From age 6 to age 10, the child is going to implement whatever it saw in the first 5 years of his life. So if in your house you play reggae, in your house you play dancehall, in your house you play hip hop, in your house you play cool numbers, in your house you dance, in your house you gossip, in your house you watch Netflix 24 hours a day, and then you don't have Quran in the house. For the first 5 years, the child understands that reggae, funky, tutatosh, culture, Bob Marley, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Lil Weezy, they are the people he must copy in life. They are the people he must copy in life. So after the age of 5 years, and then you bring him to the madrasa, and then we are alif is bow is home. We are going to suffer now to turn his lips and tongue from Jay-Z and Usher and Beyonce to alif ba ta'u. So when you bring him here, he is already frustrated because he doesn't see what we do in madrasa. He doesn't see it in the house. So he sees something, a whole different thing. So anytime it is Saturday and Sunday for him to come to the madrasa, he's frustrated. He's annoyed. So that annoyance and that anger, he cannot vent you unto you, the parent. He comes to us, innocent people, and then he vents it upon us. You don't understand the kind of problems we're facing. So the Prophet Muhammad is telling you that Murru awladakum lis-salati sab'in. Order your children to pray at the age of 7. What it means is a worst case scenario that your child should wake up and see you, the father, praying on time. Your child should wake up and see you, the father, hold their hand and bring him to the masjid. Your son should wake up and see you, the father, reading the Quran. Let me tell you something. Even if you don't know how to read the Arabic, you just hold the Quran in your hand every day for 10 minutes. Let him see that you are holding the Quran. Just look through and then flip the pages. You look through, you flip the pages. You look through, you flip the pages. He understands that this book is very, very important to daddy. You also learn how to read the book. It's all about psychology. Yesterday, a new student was brought here. And he was brought to the class that I teach. They moved, I think, from New York or from Connecticut to come here. He just entered in the class, and then I said, pick your books, we are going to have dictation. And I read out for them words in Arabic language for them to write. And this boy scored 10 over 10. First day. The handwriting, clear. The shakl, clear. He had the words, the letters all right. So I came to the office to thank Imam Noor for bringing me such a very wonderful student. And his parents were there in the office and they were having a chat. And I realized that it is the parents. And I said, may the Almighty Allah bless the two of you. And he said, Sheikh, why? What happened? I said, your boy is a genius. In the conversation, I realized that the boy had that quality from his mother. His mother is the one who teaches him at home the Quran. She's the one who teaches him how to write Arabic. She's the one who teaches him how to do everything. It is important. I always say this anytime I come to the Western world, that the fact that it is a moving place is very fast and you need to make money. Wallahi, don't make money at the expense of the life of your kids. Don't go about looking for the dollar and then the attitude and the character of your kids stink. You die and leave them all the millions and they'll forget you to rot in your grave. An example. Wallahi. Don't go around making all the monies because you want to save money for your kids. Yes, save the money for the kids. But the kind of lifestyle that you're teaching them, are you sure when you die today and then we put you in your grave, they'll remember you and pray for you? It's very important. It's a question each and every one of us must ask himself. My kids today, the kind of nurturing I'm giving them. And then don't forget, the Prophet Muhammad says, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ إِنْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. If a man dies, all his good deeds are cut off except three things. And amongst those three things, the Prophet Muhammad says, أَوَّلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدْعُو لَهُ, or a good child that remembers you and then he prays for you. The question I'm asking myself first, before I ask you, is the kind of nurturing you're giving your kids when you die. Will they remember you and then pray for you? Next point. The Seerah teaches us sacrifice. When I say sacrifice here is placing in front of you other people's needs more than yours. It is a trait that Muslims, we need to revive that. That is the source of our brotherhood. That is the source of our strength. That I have my needs, but you, my friend, my brother, you also have needs. I put my needs aside and then I take care of your needs. When the Prophet Muhammad migrated to Medina, the Sahaba from Mecca, all of them have run away from homes. They've left families. They've left money. Some of them on foot to Medina. And those of who have been to Hajj know how the terrain is. 500 kilometers of desert, rock, and sand. Some of them, before they got to Mecca, before they got to Medina, their foot were already hurt and bleeding. What the Prophet did produce a very important social program. He picks one person from Mecca and one person from Medina, and then he makes them into brothers. I hope you understand. So someone from Mecca and someone from Medina. And then the Prophet Muhammad paired two people. One of them is Sa'd ibn Rabi al-Ansari. He's from Medina. And then he gave him Abdurrahman bin Auf from Mecca as a brother. So Sa'ad told Abdurrahman bin Auf, Abdurrahman bin Auf, welcome to Medina. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, have a seat. The whole of Medina, I'm the richest man. I'm going to split my property into two and give you 50%. I have 2 farms. I'm going to give you one. I have 2 wives. I'm going to bring the 2 of them in front of you. Choose the one you want in front, the one that you want. And I'll make her do her iddah and divorce her so that you marry her. We have never heard of something like this before. The first day I read this hadith, I had to recheck that. Is it that my brain is understanding something else? It is the hadith is like that. And you check the sanad, the chain of the hadith, and it is authentic. I understand that I can split my money into 2 and give you 50%. No, I can force myself and do that. My farms, yes, I can force myself, but my wife. This is the kind of sacrifice that these people had to go through for each other, for the brotherhood to be strong. Yes, Yes. Yes. It's not as if I'm going to look at one of them and say, you are divorced so that Abdurrahman. No, 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 no. He's going to bring the two of them. So that Abdurrahman will have this one. And then you tell her, okay, I've divorced you. So Abdurrahman will have marry you. Yes, salam. You now understand why the Almighty Allah said, Radiyallahu anhum wa radu anhu. That it's not about them. It's not about their selfish interests. It's about the development and the welfare of the community. After he said that, Abdurrahman bin Auf said, Barakallahu laka fi ahlika wa malik. May the Almighty Allah bless you in your family and your money and your wealth. I don't need any of that. Just show me the path to the market. He didn't take advantage. Someone once asked me, Ya Sheikh, where can I find Sa'd ibn Rabi al-Ansari? Where can I find such a man like this? I go to him, he gives me half of his property, he gives me one of his wives. I told him, if you are Abdurrahman ibn Auf, then you can find Sa'd ibn Rabi al-Ansari. This is the sacrifice that they had. How well are we having that love and brotherhood, even at the lower level for each other, in terms of helping each other? The Sahaba used to say that in a night, someone can knock on the door, kong, 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 kong. And then when you open, there's nobody there. But then you find a wallet or a purse. And he opens it and then he sees it is gold coins. It means someone has come to give him sadaqah or a gift, and the person doesn't want him to know that it is me who has given it to you. Today, if I give you a new shirt and then you wear and then you come to the masjid, look at him. In that shirt, I gave it to him. He doesn't want you to know that he brought that money. So this guy will open the money and then you say, hey, it means someone has remembered me and that I need this money. And then he will say, I think Hajj Lamin needs this money more than me. In that same night, he will also rush and go to Hajj Lamin's house and then he will knock the door. Come, salaam alaikum. And then he leaves it and then he runs away. And then he also opens the door. And then he sees the purse. He opens and he sees money. Oh, a good Samaritan has brought this money because I need it. But Haji Musa might need this money more than me. You go and knock the door and leave it. This is what they used to do to each other. You imagine today, you wake up in the morning and then there is a briefcase in front of your house. Before I even continue, you even know the end of the story, what's going to happen. If I pick it and then I open it, and then Benjamin is looking at me like this, fool. I close it, bang, straight into the basement. Even in the basement, I'll dig a hole in the basement and put it there and close it. Even my wife, I won't tell her. May Almighty Allah safeguard us. May Almighty Allah strengthen the bonds of love between us. Finally, there is about 10 more minutes. Final reason why we did the Seerah is that the Seerah lets us understand that life is all about ups and downs. We go to the battle of Badr and then we win. We go to the battle of Uhud and then we are whipped. That's life. Someone came and then he accepted Islam. When he accepted Islam, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave him a gift. Goats between two mountains. Two mountains, and between them the valley was full of goats. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave it to him as a gift. This guy went to his village and said, hey, my people, come and accept Islam. Muhammad gives gifts as if he's not afraid of poverty. And Aisha also say that we can spend months and then there's no food being cooked in the house of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So life is like that. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't have it. Sometimes you make more money, sometimes you don't make money. Sometimes you are sick. Sometimes you are healthy. Sometimes there are no problems. Sometimes issues come in. This is the spice within which the food of life is eaten. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. These are days upon which the Almighty Allah shifts them. This life is like sunshine and then shade. Sometimes you are in the shade, sometimes you are in the sunshine. If the Almighty Allah stretches the shade of the life upon you, try as much as possible to also stretch the shade of life upon other people, because the shade doesn't stand at one place, it moves. If the sun rises, the shade is at a particular place. If the sun reaches the moon, the noon, it is at a particular place. So understand this, and then teach this to your kids. Let them understand that in life, sometimes they will get it, sometimes too they won't get it. That way you save yourself a lot of headache. But then if you pamper your kids and let them understand that, oh, life is all rosy and cozy, the day he doesn't have what he wants, he will sign $100,000 from your check and you get heart attack and you die early. That's a fact. We love the kids so much to the extent that we don't want anything bad to happen to them. We don't want anything to touch them. Even the natural growth of a child, we stop it. Boys will always be boys. They will run around, they will jump from the stairs, they will fall down. It's part of their training and growing up as boys. The girls will always want to accessorize. Understand that. But your child falls down, you want to bump him, let him cry. If he cries there, he understands what life is. But you don't want to see your children cry now. They will let you cry in the future. If you don't want to see your kids cry, they will let you cry in the future. I'm not saying be a Superman in the house, super killer, you beat them. That's not what I'm saying. No, I'm not even mentioning about that. But then provide an atmosphere of discipline in the home that the kids understand that this time around, it's okay. This time around, daddy doesn't have it. You live in peace. But then if you lie to your kids, and then you create a false atmosphere, you create a false bubble, you go and borrow more than you need. In the end, you someone's pocket, and then you create confusion for yourself. I think about 5 more minutes before Salah, we spoke about some of the reasons why we need the Sharia. We need a unique identity. And then those of us who are into dawah and revival of Islam, we need to look at the Sharia. And then training is very, very important. And then sacrifice, and understand that life is all about ups and downs. Inshallah, next week Sunday, we'll speak about the birth of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he was given birth to. And we'll touch a little bit concerning the celebration of the birthday of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what it stand in the Sharia from an intellectual point of view, not just bashing, and then we look at it from because it's a classroom and we are here to study and learn. Thank you very much. Jazakumullahu khair. Maybe we'll take 1 or 2 questions, and if there are no questions, then we'll prepare and pray. Salam, can you just stop this? Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah. Even most of it, I don't like the questions.